And then I'm recording.
Yeah. Excellent. So we are all recording. That's
We
great.
are.
Right. So we can actually start the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. I am Chris, joined by my brothers Adam and Eric.
Howdy doody.
And we are back in the room to talk
The
more
virtual room.
about the virtual room, the VR, to talk more about video games. Last week's episode, we discussed Final Fantasy VII on the PS1, which is my favorite game of all time. So to follow up on that, we're going to ask the guys their favorite games and do episodes on those. So this week, we're looking at Adam's favorite game of all time, which he has said before, but people may have missed it. So, Adam, what is your favorite game of all time?
That would be the 1998 release of Metal Gear Solid, Chris.
Way by Hideo Kojima, the mastermind. We have all definitely played this game multiple times.
Multiple times.
So we can definitely all discuss it in great detail. So I suppose before we get into the discussion, it's worth noting that this is quite an old game. We are going to get into spoilers because we want to discuss it. We will. We'll discuss it loosely first, and I will say from now on we're discussing story spoilers. So if you haven't played this game, shame on you, you mad fucker. If you got this far as a video game fan and not played Metal Gear Solid, come on. No, I'm only joking. But if you have never played it before and you find halfway through the conversation, you're like, oh, I really like the sound of this game, I really want to try it out, and you don't want to spoil on you, at the point when we say we'll now get into spoilers, you can turn it off, try it out for yourself. However, if you are one of the many who has played this game, then welcome to the discussion. Let's talk Metal Gear Solid. So,
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun.
the rest of the episode is just going to be us doing the sound effects from the game. Whose footprints are these?
I think that's what's really, really cool about it is that, like, even if you've never played the game, you know, like, it's so memey.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's like, it's so serious, but it's also like incredibly humorous.
Yeah,
as a game.
it can be quite like the whole series in general can be quite campy.
Yeah.
This is from them constantly reminding you this is a video game.
Yeah,
Like,
and
constantly.
there's no shying around that fact at all. Like
No.
it's fully aware like this is a game, and this the stuff that's in this can only be achieved in this medium. There's a highly interactive element, and we'll talk about that as we go on.
Like
for
instance, if we're talking about just like how to learn the controls, like most games would just either have this big dialogue box telling you, "Oh, press square," and it does all this, or even just other games just have square to attack. But in Metal Gear Solid, you have to like contact your colonel who will tell you if you want to climb the ladder, you have to press the action button. Like within dialogue.
It's actually like it's recorded dialogue. Push the action button to get on the ladder. It's so good. I suppose general thoughts, and we may start with Adam because he has said it's his number one favorite of all time. Why is it?
I think I mentioned it in the first episode that this is the game that got me into gaming, and it's the game that it's why I got the PlayStation 1 over the N64. Like, I don't think there's anything on the N64 that can compete with Metal Gear Solid. And yes, I know Ocarina of Time is a good game and all, but I think Metal Gear Solid is the best game of that generation. And then, obviously, I got the PS2 because of Metal Gear Solid 2, and I got the PS3 because of the anticipation of Metal Gear Solid 4. So, Metal Gear Solid has always been the purchase decision for me when it comes to gaming. I think it was just the right age and it was the right time. Like, so much of this is like GoldenEye.
It's like Destiny.
Do
Do you mean GoldenEye the movie or
the movie GoldenEye?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you have that secret agent, infiltrating this base, and then you're the boss bad guy is this like, the
British rogue agent,
but he's like the opposite to you.
Yeah.
It's like he absolutely is Sean Bean. But
sorry, just it's so funny. Like whenever you see like YouTube like fan castings of and they always Sean Bean as Liquid Snake, and they always to pick that same photo from like National Treasure.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, like if you haven't seen one, just watch like a.
He's British. He's got long hair. What more
do you want? He's always a bad guy. Just watch like a fan casting of Metal Gear Solid. I guarantee you, Sean Bean with long blonde hair from National Treasure is the picture they use for Liquid. Yeah. So funny. But sorry, go on.
Yeah. So like as a kid, I absolutely loved James Bond, and this is pretty much that as a game, but I was also big into Jurassic Park, Power Rangers, all that shit. And in this, there's a giant mechanical T-Rex you have to take out. So it's like James Bond takes on a robotic T-Rex. What's not to love?
Yeah, it's like throw a lot of shit into like a random awesome.
And there's ninjas in it.
Like, throws it back out. Yeah. Like, this game has so much stuff in it, and yet makes it all fit in this wonderful package. Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. Eric, what do you like about the game in general first?
In general, well, it's really easy to like play. Really easy to get into. Like so, you clear it, you get into it, you're straight into the game. There's not a lot of like clunkiness to get through, and just the opening is great. Like the fact that they actually went through the effort of having like the people, like the actors' names coming up, so it feels like you're watching James Bond or something.
Yeah.
It's going in.
I mean, I suppose like. It was one of the first games I'd ever experienced. It would be my second favorite game. It's hard to beat nostalgia. I think I don't know what it is. Like it's really hard. Like some of your first games, but also they set the tone for what's to come. I feel like the PS1 era, because they were limited in technology, they used so many other aspects to drive home the seriousness of what they're trying to do. Right. So because they knew the graphics weren't like. It's like, of course, there's movies and there's animation that looks better than this, but they were like, but with the music, we are so going to sell this. Like, there's something about the PS1 era music. Sometimes, like later on down the line on other consoles, the music could still be good, but like, no Metal Gear Solid game has as dark a soundtrack as the first one, and yet it looks the worst of the Metal Gear Solid series. You know what I mean? Like. But like it's so like there's all these bells and chimes and choirs and dark industrial sounds that they were like we need to sell this. Like you said, Eric, with all the actors' names coming up and stuff, like the cinematic quality ruined so many other games. For me, because it was like I have seen like a masterpiece, and if other games don't live up to like this production quality, but
that's why I think games on. Like at the time, N64 just couldn't compete with the likes of Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy VII, etc. Was because of the music, because these games were actually like the PlayStation 1. Apart from it being a pretty good games console, was a fucking phenomenal CD player.
Yeah, that's the thing, and they were all running on
the
CDs.
The sound chip in that is so good that it was being used in the PS3. That's how good the sound card was in the PS1.
Yeah.
Like people used to buy the PS1 and hook it up to a sound system and use it just as a CD player because it was because it was actually it was like what the PS3 was to Blu-ray. It was the cheapest, best CD player you could buy. That's how good it was, and so that really enhanced games. Because they could actually put proper audio tracks onto these CDs.
And my God, is the audio good?
Yeah, it's very iconic.
It's like
you just couldn't
sublime.
fit that onto an N64 cartridge, you see. So that's why all the games on N64 are really kind of not bit tuned, but kind of similar.
Yeah. I suppose in general, we should talk gameplay first before we get into some other aspects, right? Because, like any game, like if you don't like the gameplay, you're probably not going to continue playing the game. As much as everything else could be good or anything, like if you hate the gameplay, like it's really hard to get behind it. So what about Metal Gear Solid's gameplay was so good?
Well,
Who are you asking here?
yeah,
Any of you,
it's
whoever
a lot
talks
more,
first.
it was very fluid for its time. You know what I mean? Because when you're playing a lot of the games on PS1, they're all quite clunky. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like the movement is very kind of stagnant. They kind of can only move one way. Or if you have Final Fantasy, it's all turn based and stuff. While Metal Gear Solid, like when you're running in circles, it really generally is you're running in circles. Or like when you're aiming down one hallway and then you want to aim down another, like it doesn't feel so jagged. It actually genuinely feels real fluid and everything. So that was made it very easy to play. I suppose was the how it performed.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, I found that, like, even to today, like, I can hop back in and still play it. Like, it doesn't feel like let's say, Tomb Raider on the PS1.
Right, yeah.
Like, I feel like Tomb Raider, although I really loved the game and I loved playing it, like, going back to play that, it's like as if they had a vision of what they wanted it to play like and felt restrained by the hardware and what they could do.
Yeah.
That they were trying to mimic natural movement, and it just wasn't translating well. And Metal Gear Solid, I think the team really knew what was the limitations of the hardware and designed the gameplay around that. So it has essentially like the twin stick shooter kind of feel. So if you play something like Dead Nation on PS4, right?
Right, yeah.
It's like that. You're looking down and you have to shoot like this way, that way, or whatever, like that. It has that kind of feel to it because you can't aim down your sights. You have to kind of,
hope for the best, really.
Yeah, shoot sideways.
Shoot in a direction, yeah.
Yeah. So it has that kind of feel to it.
Well, same as the Resi games, actually. The early Resi games are kind of like that. You shoot in the direction.
Yeah, and I feel like, you're not obviously Resident Evil is a little bit more tank controls, I think, than Metal Gear Solid. But what's appealing about Resident Evil and Silent Hill was that they absolutely understood the restrictions of the hardware and they used that to their advantage.
Yes.
And Metal Gear Solid was the same. It was like, well, we can't really render a lot of people on screen at one time. So therefore we can't be an action game. So what do we do? And this kind of calls back to when he made the original Metal Gear on the MSX. That was a limitation, which was you can't really do that many people on screen, so you can't go full on action. So he did the opposite, which was you have to try and avoid people. So it kind of becomes this like really badass version of Pac-Man. We're just running around objects, trying to get away from people, and you're relying on their eyesight and stuff like that to try and. So it's as much of avoiding combat, as it is.
Oh, absolutely,
But once you get into combat, it's not like it's absolutely impossible. You can fight. You can run and hide until the alert status goes down.
Okay,
And then later on, like, it does become pretty damn action packed, where you have weapons that you can kind of spray and pray, and it works.
Yeah, I love that about the gameplay. I love the feeling of progression. So I love that you start off as this agent with no weapons, and a very small life bar, and like your radar to help guide you and to avoid enemies. But as you go, you'll pick up more weapons and more equipment, and as you go, your life bar will increase with every boss fight you do, until by the end of it, you feel like you can kind of look back on the journey you've gone on, because you can look at your life bar and go, remember when this was so small? Or you can like look through your items and your weapons list and go, wow, remember when I had nothing? And then you're fighting like these massive bosses, and you're like, wow, remember when I wanted to avoid every guard I met, and now I'm just like, let's take on the world. Like the progression aspect of the gameplay, I think, is something that I probably enjoy the most in the gameplay of it.
Yeah, it's definitely something I miss in, like, especially the later Metal Gear games is the like that inventory system. The, like, as you said, the weapons and items that go like kind of on either side of the screen.
Yeah.
There's not a single game that has that apart from Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can play a bunch of games where you can kind of go, oh, well, that feels a bit like Arkham Asylum, or that feels a bit like Assassin's Creed, or this feels a bit like Call of Duty. Like, a lot of games feel very samey, but there's not a single game that uses that type of inventory system. And it works so well with Metal Gear, and it makes it unique.
Yeah. No, I big time missed that in, like, some of the later entries. Like, I love that shit. I love the identity that the first one sets up.
Yeah.
And that identity, for me, has been lost later in the series. And it's one of the things that, like, really jarred at me in the later game. Like, it's kind of like, it's not like being a stealth game is not it alone. That's not all Metal Gear Solid is. Like, there's a lot to the package. Like, stealth is one aspect, but just making another stealth game within the universe isn't enough for me to make it a Metal Gear Solid game.
Yeah. But also then the boss fights, right? So the boss fights in Metal Gear Solid 1, even 2, and 3, they had that arcade game kind of feel to them.
Yes,
where you like, you know, when you're playing, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what's that game where you're like the plane, and it's almost like Space Invaders, where you're going side to side and you're shooting.
I can't think of the name
but
of it.
There's always a point like where you get so far, and then next minute, like, there's this big, huge, like, air fortress that you have to take on.
Yeah.
And it's the boss at the end of that level, and once you beat it, you go on to your next stage. And that's what the boss fights in Metal Gear Solid always felt like. There is an arcade quality to them. There's always a knack to try and defeating them.
Yeah.
And it's not just that they're bullet sponges and you just have to shoot until they die, which, again, I feel like later Metal Gear games ended up doing. There's something really, really special about the boss fights and just the bosses in general in the first Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
They all had different tactics, which like made them iconic as well. I mean, like, in most games, most bosses are just hack and slash or just shoot until they're dead, which doesn't make them memorable. But in Metal Gear Solid, they're like tactics. I mean, you have to use particular things.
Even like specific.
Am I allowed to mention a boss?
Well, like, what I would say is that, like, we could say the bosses in this game are not just like some random boss that shows up. They're characters in the game, and I always looked forward to when they show up, which is, like, weird. Like I suppose in a game you're kind of supposed to dread a boss because you're like, oh shit, here comes the challenge, and I better best this. I was always like, every time a boss came up, I'm like, yes. And I enjoyed the boss fights because they were the memorable, or they were the fights you had to do. You couldn't sneak from them. You had to do them, but they always meant something. They were story driven, and they were important fights, and they drove the story forward. And like, you have them. So in the original PS1 one, anyway, you have the booklet. God, I miss booklets. And they had, like, a list of characters, and they included the bosses. So the bosses were main characters. They weren't just your enemies. They were actually main characters in the story.
Yeah. What I love about that booklet is that it didn't tell you a single thing about them, just their name.
Yeah.
So you have this cool silhouette, you have their name, and then go play the game and find out about them.
Yeah.
The artwork in those booklets was phenomenal.
So
good.
Unbelievable.
Again, another form that makes it iconic is that you don't really see that artwork in any other games. I know there's one game that came on the PS4 recently that has its sort of artwork, but it's just...
I think there was like a Call of Duty that had something similar, but it's literally the same artist was involved. That's why.
Yeah, but it's such an icon. Like, you look at it and you immediately would think Metal Gear Solid because of how iconic that.
It's
like,
so cool. The shading and everything on the characters and the artwork is so cool. It's even on the cover of the game. Like, you'll see that artwork. It's so cool. Okay, one thing that this game I feel Revolutionize that I feel we should talk about, another general thing, is, and maybe other people would put it on another game, I don't know, but I always put it on this game, like that it revolutionized voice acting.
Yeah.
For me, it changed the game, like big time, in terms of delivering very serious lines and adding real character to voices, and a real certain quality to the voice acting.
Most games on PS1 were all just were actors delivering the lines, and that's kind of it. Like, but at least with Metal Gear Solid, they were acting. They were, I mean, it was the same quality as like on a movie or TV show. Like they were properly putting their full effort and everything into it.
But also that there was still, I wouldn't say the same quality as like a movie. Like they were used, like it could only be achieved through voice acting. What David Hayter does, live action would not work.
Man, that.
But voice acting created one of the most iconic like video game characters.
His voice isn't that bad in the first one. It's only it's only from the second one onwards does his voice get like ridiculously husky. And the first one's actually not that bad.
I'm not saying it's bad, by the way. Like I'm saying it's great.
It is very iconic.
Yeah, like, but it can only be achieved like in that way, I think.
But again, I think they were aware of the limitations of the hardware again, and when they were looking at, like, if you look again, whether it's Resident Evil or Tomb Raider, when they're trying to do voice acting, they always have that the characters over animate and their head shakes and bobbles to represent that the mouth's moving. Metal Gear Solid does something similar to that, but what it relies heavily on is animation through the codec calls. And they're able to express a lot of emotion through hand-drawn animation. And that's something that I didn't really see in any other game at the time. Utilizing, like, there may be one out there that uses animation in its cutscenes. But, and I know actually Police Knots, I think, does, which is another Kojima game.
Yeah.
That came up before Metal Gear Solid. Where, they rely on hand-drawn animation then just to deliver those lines. And it really helps, like, convey the emotion through those scenes.
Well, it's funny, actually, on the codec side of things, which is another gameplay mechanic, and it's great because it gives you constant contact with characters who aren't in the same game world as you. Like, they're off screen, they're not in the same place as you. You can't physically meet them, but yet they play a very important role in the story because of the contact you keep with them through your codec system. But they, like, I won't say, but there's like moments where, like, the codec is supposed to be just this like thing you hear in your ear, and there's moments where it's like I can see you, like the animations react to each other even though they physically cannot see each other. I won't spoil it yet. There's a specific moment I'm thinking of where it's like it works really well because it's really shocking and it's like a great revelation, but at the same time it's like you can't see him. So it's fucking funny. But there is like just things like that in the game. Like there's little funny things, and also the game threw a few like curveballs, I feel, at the player, where it's like you figure it out. Like there would be moments where they give you kind of loose hints of what you could do, but they do literally just go, like there's no hint or tutorial that comes up on the screen to say why don't you try this. Like it just goes, there you go, good luck.
Yeah,
figure that out.
Well, a lot of PS1 games were like that because a lot of PS1 games were developed for people who were smart, and games nowadays are not.
No, I don't
think that's true, Eric.
I think a lot of games were not necessarily play tested to the extreme that they should have been, and they were just straight up broken. But Metal Gear Solid was designed to be a puzzle.
Yeah.
And so. It's like, and I love games that do that, where the player has to learn the ins and outs and mechanics of the game in order to get past it. And it's not just straight up like, I don't want to say skill, but like
skill.
Things have been, some stuff is just like it's just ridiculous. Like, you have to fucking shoot this guy this many times and until your fucking finger bleeds. It's like that to me is not as interesting as like understanding the actual like mechanics of the game.
Yeah, like something like, for example, a full frontal assault on the boss won't work. You have to like avoid him and get behind him and shoot him from behind. Something like that, where it's like
Yeah.
there's an actual tactic to fighting this boss.
Yeah.
Or, the classic Legend of Zelda thing, which is do something 3 times. But it's a specific thing that if you don't do, literally, like, you can hack and slash till the sun comes down, but, like, you won't do anything to the boss.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I would agree. Like, I do prefer boss fights where there is
Tactic to it, yeah.
there's something that you have to do, and once you know what to do, great. And it's not just a case of, oh, I need to go back and grind more.
And there's a few games that use that system. That system is very good because it kind of like tells a story about the character, about the enemy you're fighting. That you have to use a particular tactic to defeat them. Kind of like tells a story in itself.
It does, yeah. There's a whole storytelling interaction in that, I feel.
Yeah.
And it's like we've said before, the gameplay serves the story. And Metal Gear Solid is a prime example of a game where the gameplay serves the story.
Yeah, I think a lot of games now owe a lot to it. Like the Arkham Asylum, for one.
Oh, big time.
Like there is Metal Gear Solid is all over that. Like if you love Arkham Asylum, apart from it just being a Batman game, but if you just love how that game plays, you will absolutely love Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Because it is straight up pretty much the same thing. It's like you're in a facility that's kind of being overrun by the bad guy. They have full control of it. There are hostages, and then there's bosses that have a very specific way to take them out. And you can go back and forward throughout the facility to become better.
Get your new gadgets, get your new equipment move forward.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like Arkham Asylum is definitely like, and it was actually one of the things, like, it's not a criticism because I love that game. And one of the reasons I love it is because it made me feel that again. I love Metal Gear Solid. I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this is a great marriage. I love Batman and I love Metal Gear Solid. So, like, how the fuck could you go wrong? Like, if you put you smack the two of them together.
It's so clever. Like, and it's not like it's not like a blatant copy. It's just kind of you are familiar that this was an influence on those game creators.
Yeah, definitely. And as well, like, I think if you are a game developer, much like any other artist, and you're wanting to create something, there's no point in like deliberately avoiding a genre if everything is lining up. If you're like, that seems too similar to that, maybe we should like scratch everything we're doing and go do something else. Like if everything's lining up perfectly, where it's like, this feels like it should be like this actually, because it's all, you know what I mean? Like it's like, let's go for stealth mechanics because that makes sense to Batman's character. Or let's go for like a Metroidvania style facility thing because that's just really making sense for the Arkham Asylum layout, But anyway, sorry, back to Metal Gear Solid. Don't get me started on Arkham Asylum. It's gonna have to be its own episode. But yeah, I suppose another loose thing we could talk about is just, we talked briefly about the voice acting, but just the characters in general, without getting into story specifics.
Yeah, so if we're
about the characters,
comparing, like, let's say we're comparing James Bond and Metal Gear Solid, which we had done. One thing I love about Metal Gear Solid was the fact that no character in it was like just there for James Bond, like for Solid Snake to save. Like all the females were strong characters who absolutely served the purpose of the story, and same with all the male characters. But like James Bond is full of such ridiculously useless characters. But like at least Metal Gear Solid, every character had a role to play and they served it brilliantly.
Yeah. And
and it's like the campiness of them is only like a facade.
Yeah.
And there's a deeper kind of motivation to every character in it. It's not that they're just blindly following orders. Like to some degree they are, but there is a deeper reason as to why they're following those orders.
Yeah, there's this weird like for example, a good example of a character who's really campy and there's a lot more to them once you get to know them. Otacon, right? Who's one of the main Metal Gear Solid characters. You first meet him, like I fucking hated him when I first met him.
Yeah.
Because I was at an age where I just thought like the coolest characters were the coolest, and there's no strength in, compassion or any of these kind of things. So like
you were hard ass when you
I was no, that's what I looked at. I was like, Solid Snake, yeah, he's my man, you know what I mean? Or like Wolverine or these kind of heroes, or like the cool like, gruff men that I'll never be. So I was like, Solid Snake, he's bang on my hero. So when I met Otacon, I was like, come on, he's like a wimp. But Otacon has this, like, you get to know him then, and he has this strength, and he has these complications, and it goes on into the next few games. Like, he's a really complicated character.
Complications. He's
Yeah,
a weird guy. He's a complicatedly weird guy.
But yeah, like, so he's just he like, there's loads of examples throughout the series and throughout the first game, but he's just one example of a character that is not like what you see at first is not the whole package. There's a lot more going on, and they're great. They're great characters. But even the characters off screen, there's a lot going on. Like the bigger plot, a lot of it is happening with the people who are on your codec.
There's a few in there that I wish had more of a role to play, like Natasha.
Yeah,
she's there. She shows up once. She's like, "Yeah, ring me if you want to know about weapons and shit." Okay, like I don't think I ever rang her ever.
I did, but not like the first couple of times. Only later on down the line, I was like, maybe I should, because she doesn't show up again.
Yeah.
So the only way to get to know her. And that's the other thing. I feel like if you play the game, you'll actually want to get to know the characters. Like, you will want to know more about them, because some of the ones, it's like, if they give you a little bit, now you want more. So like, if they didn't delve into some people's backstories, you probably wouldn't care. You'd go, whatever, another character. But because they do, you go, oh, are all these characters layered? Jeez, I want to know more and more about everyone now.
And I wish the other games kind of had something similar, like Mei Ling. I love the way there's like a face to the action of saving the game. So you ring her when you want to save.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It's not like
you don't have to look for a save point.
Yeah, it's just ring her at any point and save your game. But like in like Metal Gear Solid 2, that role is given. Actually, every single codec role is given to Otacon. Whereas in the first one, there is a specific person you call for specific things.
Yeah, I love that.
But
there's different characters then.
Another aspect of like breaking the kind of breaking the fourth wall or something, like it's like this is a character that exists in this world who's now asking you to call her if you want to save. Like that's a thing in reality.
Yeah, no, it's so good. Like, it's like, and like the Colonel will even say, like, who's kind of, gives you all your main instructions, and he'll say, you should call Mei Ling if you want to save your progress. It's like, I mean, in reality, that doesn't mean anything. Like, and they don't even try to dress it up, and they'll have her call you and say, hey, Snake, would you like to save your game? But yet the game is so serious as well. So like, but it doesn't not for any second does it stop pretending that it is a game. Like, it's fully aware it's a game, and it's like the best at what it does. And as you play it, the best is yet to come. That's such a cool song as well. So actually, on that topic, let's talk the soundtrack and the music before we move on any further.
Oh my god, it's too much to discuss about this game, man.
There's so much. Yeah, like, you could literally just talk about every element of the game because it's so good. Okay, let's talk the first room you go into, and then the second room.
Yes, please.
Step by step, discuss the entire game. No, but genuinely, like, I said it earlier, like, I love the soundtrack for how serious it makes the whole thing feel, and I feel like no other Metal Gear Solid game actually did that. They all had great soundtracks for their game, but they didn't take it back to this really serious, and like, Shadow Moses becomes such a memorable and iconic location purely for the music and the feel of it, I feel.
Yeah, like I just feel the music itself just has like this kind of, like, it kind of has a similar sound to GoldenEye as like we're making that.
It actually does,
but it does actually have, there's like this
like clinks and stuff, and
like an industrial drum kind of a thing that kind of has this military sound to it. But there's also a real kind of haunting sound to the soundtrack.
Yeah, you hear choirs every so often as you're walking around this nuclear warehouse, and it's just like, this just feels like doomsday, and yet
it's really nice that
isolated.
Obviously the music back then, the compression rate wasn't as good as it is today, so there is a the music itself just isn't as crisp, but it serves it so well because it adds this weird kind of distorted echoey sound.
Yeah.
Which just sounds like it's echoing throughout this empty facility you're in. And that's one thing I really love is how isolated it feels and how like alone you feel. Because there isn't actually that many people there. And you're just running around and it's like, here's a bunch of nuclear warheads. Like if you shoot, like this place is going to go up. But I love it as well, like throughout the game, if you use, there's a digital camera that doesn't really serve much of a purpose in the game, but if you take photographs of certain points throughout Shadow Moses, and you look at your camera, there's actually ghosts throughout. So yeah,
I thought that was only in the fourth one.
Whoa!
No, the fourth one is that's a callback to the first.
I never saw this. I never saw this. Holy shit! And I played the shit out of that game, but I obviously didn't care about the digital fucking camera.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't really serve much of a.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Point. Now the ghosts are literally just photographs of all the developers.
Oh, so it's a cool little Easter egg in it.
Yeah, it's throughout. But there's just something. Even if you didn't know that was there, there's just something about.
I'm telling you, I didn't. It's not a lie.
But you kind of had a sense that there's just something kind of haunting about this location.
Oh yeah, no, I
just
always
because of the music.
Yeah, big time.
And when there's like that song, "The Best Is Yet to Come," like any moment where that kicks in, it's just like, oh, that is the best tune.
Particularly like the intro, but
it's best Irish song ever.
Yeah, and I like. Well, I had no idea
that's
that it
really
used Gaelic, but when you find that out, I suppose if you're Irish, that makes it even cooler because it's a language that doesn't get used a lot in like video games or pop culture all that much. So
and when it is used, it's really kind of, leprechaun-y kind of typical trad style. That's a really cooler, unique way to use the Irish language in a song.
But it's bizarre when you think about it, because you don't even have to think about it. Like, there's no one's Irish in the game. There's no Irish links. There's no, like, the place isn't anything to do with Ireland or anything. There's a lot of Native American sounds in it and references in it and stuff. And like when I first heard a song, because I was a young child, I didn't know much of the language at all, so I didn't figure out any of the words. So I actually thought it was this Native American tune because it's even sung in that way. Like, it's beautiful. And then to find out it was Irish was like, I don't know why it is, but it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool because it has like I said, even the music itself is not necessarily Irish trad.
No, not at all.
So it's just like this combination of different cultures brought together, and it like, I'm shocked that no one else has made a band specifically with that type of sound. Like, it's composed, it's written and composed by a Japanese composer. It's performed and sung by an Irish trad singer. Like, it's recorded in Dublin. Like, it's an incredible tune, and it's really underlooked as well.
And do you know when? And another time it's incredible is when it's the intro to a heavy metal song and live, and it gets you hyped up because you get hyped up and then you get into a mosh pit. Great crack. Sorry, Eric, what were you gonna say?
He's some man for having like really out there weird songs for his games. Like, he's like from Japan, but it's like, here's Metal Gear Solid, here's an Irish, then you get like Death Stranding, here's Icelandic, and it's like, where the fuck are you hearing this music, man?
I think MGS2 is really the only one that lacks like a song to define it.
Yeah, that's, I suppose, like, one of the reasons I love the first one's soundtrack so much is MGS2 has like a jazzy soundtrack, and it's cool, and it's because I think it's possibly because it's kind of set in like New York, but just in terms of mood and tone, it just doesn't feel as a result, it doesn't feel as serious as the mixed genres that are going on in the first game.
It's far too bright as well, Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah, in its color palette, you're right. It's a much brighter game than the darker, more serious tones of the first. I think so anyway. It's kind of weird and I didn't realize, like, it's so strange. When I was younger and like playing the game, I just took it at face value, like Metal Gear Solid. Like, just took the title, didn't mean anything. Metal Gear. If you break that title down, it's such a weird fucking title, like because it's actually Metal Gear, and then the subtitle is Solid.
Yeah.
Which is the first name of your, like the first part of your main character's code name, Solid Snake.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just that. It's like
the whole thing is becoming solid now, isn't there?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like
Yeah,
I know
it's the first time using 3D graphics, so solid graphics. So it was it's supposed to be Metal Gear 2, and then Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah. And plus
but it became the first one, which is weird.
And as well, it's a solid game. This game is solid. We actually, when we talked about the characters, we didn't say what we think about Solid Snake, which is the character you're playing as, the protagonist.
Well, he's
sure, he's okay. Like, he's grand. Like
I said, like if you've never played the game, you know who he is. If someone did his voice, you know exactly who that is and where that came from.
Yeah.
Like he has to be up there with Mario as being probably one of the most famous. Well, maybe not Mario, Link. I'd say he's as famous as Link. I think.
Well, he made it into Super Smash Bros. Even though he has nothing to do with Nintendo.
Yeah, he does.
What?
The Twin Snakes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Twin Snakes, which is the remake.
That's right.
Fuck's sake, Chris.
Sorry, guys. Do you know what?
You know nothing.
yeah. Fire me. Sorry. Yeah, he does. But I suppose like a lot of people know him from that actually, like newer generations who would have never played yourself. They'd know him from Smash Bros. Yeah, of course they would.
But it's the Metal Gear Solid 2 design that they used.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct.
He's good.
Solid Snake. He's my favorite protagonist within the Metal Gear Solid franchise. Because like people often.
There's not exactly many others.
No, but a lot of people prefer Big Boss. I prefer Solid Snake, and purely for this game. Because I really like the journey he goes on from this cold, ruthless kind of, and they bring it up a lot in the themes, like a cold, ruthless killer who doesn't ask questions and then starts asking questions, and like there's a lot of twists and turns, and he becomes a very different man by the end of it. Yeah. I think it's a great story. With that segue, can we talk specifics now? Can we? Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, so from now on, it's a spoiler talk. So if you liked the sound of the game and you never played it before, we all highly recommend you give it a go.
Even if you don't like the sound of it, go play it.
Yeah, go play it. Yeah,
like this is so important. This is such an important game in like game history. Yeah. Like you have to experience it.
Yeah. Even if just experience the start of it and see how you go.
Yeah. It's not the same when you watch it. You have to play it.
Yeah. Now, actually, just before we do spoilers, that's an important note. You will have to do a lot of watching, and you're probably not used to that. There'll be many moments you get to put your controller down for a while, just watch a really long cutscene. But that's part of the magic. And if you don't like that, you're wrong. Having long cutscenes in a video game is awesome. Really good.
I don't know if that's any different
what
than games today, though.
This game is long without having to have a lot of bullshit missions in it. That's an impressive thing that it did.
There's no side quests.
No,
the whole thing is
this is a 60-hour length game, and that's because of the cutscenes.
Jesus Christ, it's not.
It's like what, 9 maybe?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like you could definitely clear it in like a day.
You can clear the game if you skipped all the cutscenes. You can clear it in like less than 5 hours.
But do not skip the cutscenes. What did I just say?
Yeah, the whole point of playing is to get the story.
No, like, but honestly, if during like at the time of recording this, we're all in lockdown. Someone might listen to it much later on down the line. But if you are in lockdown at the moment and you've never played this game, it is a great game to pass the time, and you could definitely play it in a day and go, "Wow, I had that experience."
The only problem with it now is like unless you have a PlayStation,
it's kind of hard.
I don't know how you would get it. So it's only available on PS3, PSP. I don't even know if the store is still available for PSP. PS Vita, probably PC, maybe, and that's it.
There is a PC version.
And if you have the PlayStation Classic, that's it.
Yeah.
Right, that's the only way you can get this game.
I got the PlayStation Classic just for that game and Final
That's what I
Fantasy
didn't
VII,
understand. Like when people were going on about the classic being, oh my god, it's a rip-off. It's like it has Final Fantasy VII and Metal Gear Solid, the two greatest games ever made on this single thing. Like, fuck everything else on it. Like everyone's like,
but
oh,
fucking
where's
look,
Crash Bandicoot? Like, whatever. It's
who
got
gives a
Metal Gear
shit?
Solid and Final
You're
Fantasy
gonna
VII.
have Metal Gear Solid 5 and 7 beside each other, and you're gonna go, nah, Crash Bandicoot. Fuck that shit. I want to spin and hit some barrels.
Like Crash Bandicoot,
Get the
like
fuck.
as iconic as Crash Bandicoot
Great
is,
game.
it's
Great
a
game.
mess of a game.
It's a
It's an
it's a
absolute
great game.
mess of a game.
But you won't get like half-hour cutscenes in Crash Bandicoot, so you won't feel like you're getting, your money for your buck. You know what I mean? You're not getting enough out of it. Okay, so from now on, we are going to talk stories, spoilers, and all that for Megas. It feels weird to say that. Like, this is an old game. But at the same time, for anyone who hadn't played it, I would hate to ruin the experience for someone. So that's your final warning, and good luck. Right, spoilers.
Let's
Um,
to keep.
I go go straight into it. What's your favorite boss fight in the game? And we can talk the specifics of it and the setup of it and why. But what's your favorite boss fight? Because they are huge moments in the game. Like, it's hard not to pick a certain one. There is a certain one that is hard not to pick straight
Like
away.
there's one that like I think the most iconic boss fight in it. And I love the mechanic of figuring out how to defeat him. But once you know it, it's not a very compelling boss fight, and that's
That's true,
Psycho Mantis.
Psycho Mantis, yeah.
Like the actual fight itself is not great, but the trick on beating him is
So, and this is
So
what we talked
good.
about earlier on, where the game will throw you into moments where it just does not explain what
Like-
you have to do, and you got to figure it out.
If anyone was impressed by Rocksteady's Scarecrow moment in
Arkham
Arkham
Asylum.
Asylum,
Yeah.
like as cool as that was, it's not unique because it happened in this game with Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, and he fucking, like, I remember, like, when he said I'm gonna read your mind, and started saying like the games I liked. I was like, like, what? How does he know that?
Or it's like,
such a
oh,
clever
you're a careful
trick.
player, you save often, all that kind of shit.
I was like, how do you know that? Like, and I mean, obviously it makes sense. He is reading your actual memory card, and it's based on that. But it's like, but hold on a second. Like, the voice act, and like, he'll name some of the games you like. It's like if you actually think about that, like, how many times did they get the voice actor
Well,
to
it's only
record that?
He can
and
only
say
call out the games.
Yeah, the specific ones,
Yeah,
obviously.
it's only very specific ones. Like he won't say, "Oh, you love playing Final Fantasy VII," but he might say things like, "You like RPG games" or something like that.
He says Castlevania, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I think there's one or two that he will say.
He will say
Yeah.
it if they're Konami games.
Oh yeah, okay.
So if you played,
alright.
if you played Castlevania or
Like Silent Hill or something.
or Pro Evolution Soccer or something like that, I think he mentions.
You like football.
He's such a
But
cool.
what I love about that is, like, as cool as that is, that's him like reading the player's memory, which is obviously just your memory card. What that means in the greater kind of story of the Metal Gear saga is crazy. Like the whole, like, I won't go deep into it, but the whole, like, what makes you powerful is your control of digital information, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And how where his powers comes from in terms of, like, it all being digitally distributed.
Yes.
Like, that is so fucking cool. Like, but like, I doubt he wasn't thinking about the greater scheme of things back then, but how he managed to rope
it all in.
like,
Kojima, you're
it's just
genius. Yeah, I mean, like that's the most iconic one, so we can all talk about the Psycho Mantis one, and then maybe we'll say ruling that out because of that it is the most iconic one. After that, what's our each individual famous or favorite boss fight? But Eric, what do you think about the Psycho Mantis fight?
Oh, well, like, it throws a motherfucking curveball at you, like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get to... like you're trying to like, oh, I'm gonna run right to get away from his cupboard. He's gonna throw at me, but then he makes you run left because he takes control of your controller, and you have to try and figure out how to fucking like solve that issue.
And isn't it you plug your controller out and plug it into the next port, and then you can't do it for a bit, and then you have to change it again. Yeah.
No, you don't change it again. It's just straight into player 2, because he can only control player 1.
It's like you're fighting your PlayStation. It's
yeah, and then it does the whole like black screen and the whole Hideo thing comes up. Yeah. And back in the day, like for all you youngsters out there, we used to have this television called a CRT TV, and it was one of those things where the PlayStation used to plug into what was called an aerial port. And you would have to find the exact channel in which, so it wasn't just like AV or HDMI or whatever like that. You had to find the exact channel out of 100 of which one your PlayStation was on.
And remember that.
And if you lost signal, like, so let's say your video card broke in the PlayStation 1 or your cable broke, there would be this flash on your TV where it would say video signal missing, or it would just say video in green writing up in the corner on a black screen. And that was what was happening. Now, if that's anything, that's exactly what happens with the Scarecrow moment in Arkham
Asylum, where he makes it think
plays,
your console
it plays on the whole thing of the player hoping their console isn't breaking, and that's exactly what happens. But you are technically it shows you in a visual way, because technically you are breaking the game. You're breaking the game in order to defeat him, which is switching over to player 2.
Yeah,
it's not a player 2 game.
It's such a clever system for fighting a boss, and like the first time, without anyone telling you, you definitely won't figure it out. But as soon as someone tells you, and it became this thing of like, man, do you know how to beat Psycho Mantis? And like people like sharing the information, and it was so cool.
That's something I really miss, is the whole going into school and like at lunchtime just chatting to all.
Well, Adam, you're just not allowed to go to school anymore. You're too old, man.
I just love going into kids' schools and just talking about Metal Gear Solid.
That's not where I was going with the joke at all. I was saying you miss being in school. But okay. Nice one, bro.
Because it's the same with like when you were playing Pokemon at the time.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, well, how do you get that particular? Like, so you're all like sharing tips and stuff like that. Now, he must have known that that's exactly what everyone would be doing. Because, there's no way you would figure out how to beat that if it wasn't from word of mouth. And it became like that, like an urban legend kind of a thing.
Yeah. Big time.
It's almost like when you
hear of social gaming, though. So he does like to do that, so to make sure that people do socialize, which is great that he keeps that takes that into account.
I think my favorite thing about like not only all that aspect of the fight and everything, but like just even like Psycho Mantis as a character, like not only has he got such a cool and weird and creepy design, like it looks like something straight out of like a H.R. Geiger drawing, but I think he's the only boss in the game that has his own theme tune. So he has the Mantis hymn. Like there's music for each area, I suppose, but he actually like every time he comes on, he has this hymn that plays under him, and then when leads up to him, and the characters can hear it, and it's this like entrancing kind of, and it's really choral and scary, and it just kind of builds up the anticipation of actually fighting him and dealing with him. And I think it's so cool. And while you're fighting him, that hymn plays, and he takes control of Meryl, and then has her like about to shoot herself. And it goes to show like how powerful he is over other people. And it's just really dark, and suddenly the game enters a little bit of a horror element before it goes back to Super Spy, and it's so cool.
So many different aspects, like the different genres just slapped into that. Like,
it's great.
And the whole like kind of plan, the bad guy's plan is Psycho Mantis as well. Like, so he came up with the whole thing.
Genius.
I have a good idea. Oh my god. Yes, you do.
Especially
what a great idea you have.
We can talk about spoilers now, right?
Yeah, you can say.
So the fact that they have like in the booklet, they have all the different villains, and one of them is Decoy Octopus.
That's right.
And he's for the whole thing not in it. And it's kind of like, where the fuck is this guy? Like, he's not in any of the videos. There's no voice. And he was there the whole time, kind of.
I know, yeah. And like the thing is, like, not only is it like, because you might think, oh, maybe it's just like a little extra thing in the book, right? But at the very start of the game, the Colonel does name out each of the villains and what their skills and all are that you will be facing, right?
Yeah.
And so you are wondering, like, where's this decoy octopus guy? Like, I haven't seen him at all, and then some things happen and they don't start to add up. So you first meet the DARPA chief, and then he dies of a sudden heart attack, and then later on you find the DARPA chief's body, but you can tell he's been dead a lot longer than when you met him earlier on in the night, and you're like, things aren't adding up. And then the twist is that the DARPA chief you spoke to earlier was Decoy Octopus, and he's fed you a lot of bullshit so that they can use you as their catalyst to pull off their plan.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
It's
so fucking good.
Like, that's what I really love about it, is just like how everyone is intertwined into the overall plot, and it's not just, oh, I get this far, I guess I have to beat a boss now. It's like each boss is like has a pivotal role.
Yeah, huge. And actually, just before, because that's going to lead me on to another topic, but just before we do that, so apart from the Psycho Mantis thing, and we're still on topic of bosses, what's your favorite boss fight in the game?
Every time you ask that question, I think of the tank boss fight, and I have no idea why.
Okay.
Maybe it's because, like, it's the first boss fight where you have to somewhat think outside the box. It's not just to keep shooting it. Like, you have to have the hand grenades and you toss it. And also just the ridiculous concept of you're this spy with a couple of hand grenades taking on a tank.
Yeah.
Like,
and as well, it's one of those things, like, I always love the big vehicle fights in the Metal Gear Solid games, and they don't all do them, but the first one had a few of them. So yeah, that is actually a really cool fight. And it introduces, that's the thing, it's not just a random tank. Vulcan Raven, who's another one of the big bosses, is in the tank. So the boss fight is doing two things. It's not only giving you a more challenging boss fight that you haven't had previously, but also it's introducing the character of Vulcan Raven and everything that he's about. Like, if he's going to get into a vehicle, he's a tank. You know what I mean? Like,
what a great set of names for characters.
Oh,
like,
so
you just, the way the video said, I was like, that is such a good name. Vulcan Raven.
Yeah,
you know he's a big fuck.
Yeah,
like, you know he's a big guy.
Adam, have you a favorite boss fight?
I think probably the fight with Grey Fox.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's such a
good
fight.
There's only one in the game, isn't there?
Yeah,
the fist fight one in
the fist fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me feel alive again. Hurt me more, dog.
It's the only fight I'm thinking of that's not like because some of the fights I just feel are like, once you know how to do it, it's like so they kind of lose their appeal the first time, or after the first time. Whereas the fight with Grey Fox, it's always kind of exciting because he can kind of disappear and appear in another location. You're not always like, you can't really anticipate his pattern.
Yeah.
So the fight is always exciting when you're playing it. But then just the overall theme of that fight and why they're fighting and
what it
means
represents
for the whole story, like, that's so cool.
I love
like Grey Fox is such an awesome character.
I love him.
And the
so
intro video to just bbefore you enter that room is fantastic.
And it is like it is a horror thing, like, because you can hear all these voices, and if someone actually says, "Oh, it's a ghost," actually, ghosts seem to be a big theme in the game.
Yeah, very
like
much so.
Spirits are like the spirits of the past haunting, coming back to haunt the main character and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, very much so. I think I love that fight as well. Well, I mean, I love most of the fights, but I think Sniper Wolf.
Which one?
Probably the second one, I think. No. Well, okay. I like them both, but the thing about the first one is there's something, like, you do have to go, like, you kind of have to go a little bit too far to come back to her.
Yeah.
So it kind of, like, takes the immediacy, like, so that fight is set up really well, but the immediacy of the fight.
Stay right there. I'll be right back.
Stay right there. I'll be right back. And, like, as soon as you get back, like, it's been so long that you've been gone that they actually have to show a flashback of the fact that Meryl was there. So but the second fight, and the reason I like it so much is, like, it's not highly intense or anything. It's not like a fast-paced fight. Snake has to fight her on her terms. Like, the only way to fight her is with a sniper. And like, she's the best sniper in the world. Like, she's like super duper sniper.
You can use the Nikita rocket launcher.
That's in the second fight.
I know you can. Yeah. Sorry, I mean the second fight anyway. But you really use the sniper. Come on.
I know she was kicking my ass when I was using the sniper.
Yeah, but what I just like that as a character thing. Like, to fight Sniper Wolf, you do have to fight her on her terms. You know.
Yeah.
And you have to best someone who is the best at what they do. And that's like Solid Snake has to use all these different tools and weapons to like one up all these people who are absolute experts in their fields. And as a result, he becomes better after it. So I love that fight. I think it's so good.
I think the conclusion of that fight is really cool as well, because it's a bit like Shadow of the Colossus in that way, where when you you realize you have to kill her. It's part of the game. You have to go through with it. And after you do, like, then it turns out your buddy in the game, or your new buddy in the game, Otacon, was in love with her, and she has this like real kind of heartfelt like story, and she was like raised, or at least somewhat taken in by Snake's daddy.
Yeah, big boss.
Yeah. So like just that, and then the best is yet to come music kicks in as well. It
does, yeah. And it's actually, I think, I'm pretty sure that's the end of Disc 1, just before you launch into Disc 2.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's strange, because you find yourself feeling sad to lose a character. That's the thing. Like, the bosses aren't just the bosses, they're also characters. And, there's all this sad stuff. Like, you're walking away in the snow, and Otacon's like, what was she fighting for? What are you fighting for? Like, what is all this meaningless violence? Like, what do we even... So, like, the game, like, even though there's a lot of, like, there is fighting in it, and there's shooting, and there's talks of nuclear war and all this stuff, there's a lot of questions about what's the point in fighting, and why do people kill each other, and, like, why do nuclear warheads even exist? And, like, there's a huge critique on war and violence within the game, even though fighting is one of the mechanics. Like, it's so good.
And he was like, Snake always, like, he does bring up the point as well, where he's like, sometimes you get caught up in the moment, and although you know what you're doing is wrong, you have to make a decision, and that decision can always, it can lead to being a terrible decision or the right decision, but in that moment you don't think of it, you just have to make a decision and do it, and then live with it.
But there's another great moment when Psycho Mantis dies, and he similarly has this like monologue moment where he gets to talk about, he talks about how horrible he was, but at the same time he says a line that like it's why I was like, Solid Snake is definitely like the more complicated and intricate character. Like, Psycho Mantis says, I used to think I was like so horrible and rotten and that nothing could save me, but having seen what's in your heart, it soothes my own. Like, he's like, he says something like that. He looks into, because he read Snake's mind and saw everything Snake has done and been through and how Snake feels about things and everything. Psycho Mantis is like, I can actually die with peace now because I feel like I've met someone worse.
That is so badass. Like,
even though Snake's probably not worse than Psycho Mantis. Like, Psycho Mantis is a lunatic, but like, he's a fucking lunatic. Like, they do say that he is an absolute psychopath. It's part of his name, but. Just that line really like goes to show like there is something dark in Snake.
Something that I do love about all the 4 Metal Gear Solid games is how much of an anti-war they all are.
Yeah.
Which is great because like a lot of films, because of the fact they're based off like James Bond or Rambo, they're like those films gotten very kind of pro hero fighting the bad guys. War is great, and then like. It's just great to have something to remind you. No, war sucks. Like Call of Duty, even, it's kind of very like, yay, war is great, kind of like, you know what I mean?
Well, I suppose it's because like it is Eastern game. Out of all countries that are like big game developers, they know the true horror of war. It was Japan that was nuked twice. Like, I suppose really understand the horror of war.
Yeah, I suppose that's why the topic of, because nuclear war is the big topic in the Metal Gear Solid games.
Yeah.
And it comes up a lot. And there's like, even they show real life footage of like in this game, like they show real life footage of like nuclear waste and what's done with it and all this kind of stuff. And they do mention the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings and what they look like afterwards. They talk about Chernobyl, all this stuff. Like, it does make sense that Kojima would be very passionate on that topic, and as a result, makes that like the topic of the games, and how horrible that nuclear war is a possibility. Like, that possibility is so terrifying and scary. And
but he also like he's like, because like him as a kid, or throughout his life, he experienced.
Do you know him? Like,
oh yeah, I spoke to him there. Sure, the other day. Like, and what Koji said to me there was,
video.
You know, he experienced death quite early in his life, and throughout his life, he was experiencing like death around him, and death is a huge theme in this game. Like, what does it mean? Like, what does your life ultimately mean, and what are you going to do with it? And it's a lesson that he learns it's like Snake learns at the end of the game. It's like, you know, now I'm going to live for myself rather than following orders. But the whole like death being an inevitable thing and the fear of it, you can liken it to the threat of a nuclear disaster. It's like, as long as you hold on to a nuke, it's as inevitable as, you know, your own death. Yeah. You know, like, if you have it there, it's like at some point something horrible is going to happen, and we're all doomed then at that point.
Preach, brother, preach.
But yeah, no, like, it's a scary thought, and like they address a lot of really deep topics within these games. Not just the first one. They go into a lot more actually in the other games. Like, and some of the stuff is even more relatable to the rest of the world than the nuclear stuff. Like, some of it is each and every individual will relate to it, and it's kind of terrifying.
When they bring in social media, when they bring in
the Black Mirror effect on the whole Metal Gear Solid franchise,
it's very scary.
But Eric, you brought up the decoy octopus thing earlier on, and we all kind of went crazy over that. And there's loads more twists in Metal Gear Solid. I think the first one nearly has the most. It doesn't have like the biggest twist, but it has like the most amount of twists. Like, there is a lot of twists in it, twists and turns throughout this story.
It's very twisty.
It's very
another great one is the
I was just
Naomi.
about to ask, before you just say it's a great one, I was going to ask, what is your favorite twist in the first Metal Gear Solid game? And well, actually, Eric, is it that one?
I don't know. There's such fucking.
It's like, hey, you threw a curveball my way now.
Yeah, you just let me talk about it. Stop asking all these favorite questions. Let me fucking talk about the game.
All right, well, say what you're going to say now, actually, but then we'll follow up with what your favorite twist is.
For fuck's sake. The Naomi Hunter twist and the George Whitehouse twist, which I think are kind of interlinked.
Who?
The Secretary of Defense?
Jim Hesman.
Jim Hesman. Yeah,
did you call him? I don't mind the George bit. Did you say his surname was Whitehouse? And I'm Mr. Oval Office.
That does sound like a Kojima name. Though,
and over here is Dr. Pentagon.
What's his actual name?
Jim Hesman.
I wasn't that far off. I had a house in there. Yeah, Jim Hesman. And I think they're interlinked within this twist, but like they both have their own reasons.
Agenda.
They have their own reason for giving Solid Snake a bioweapon.
Yes,
which is great.
Yeah, so they've actually sent Snake in as a like, they don't care whether he stops the nuclear threat all that much. What they want is for him to spread a bioweapon to kill the terrorists, just to make contact with them. That's why they send him with no weapons. All we want you to do is make contact, spread this virus, kill the terrorists, so that we can take the weapon unharmed. This is why we gave you no weapons. Like,
Yeah.
Because you probably would have gone in gun blazing and blown the place up, and we don't want that. But they don't tell you that. And even the Colonel is in on it. Your entire Kodak crew is in on it. And Snake has just been used. But yeah, I suppose you're right, Eric, that Naomi has a different agenda, which is that she has programmed it to, once the mission is over, kill Snake as well.
Yeah.
For revenge. Because she's actually Grey Fox's sister.
Kinda.
Sort of.
Kinda.
Yeah, it's all
another great twist.
Don't they have
It's another
a
great
weird
twist.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, that's another.
There's loads.
Fuck me.
But as a result,
So...
have you a favorite twist? And it could be the decoy octopus one, actually. It could be.
It's fucking
It could be the Meryl twist. It could be the.
Oh yeah, that one.
Could be.
This game should just be Twist
Twist galore, like. But they all, and as well, it never feels like they just kind of go, and here's another one. It all like, because every time they give you a character, they set it up.
Yeah.
You know, and when it happens, it's just natural. You know, or they set it from the beginning. There's stuff happening from the very start of the game that doesn't get explained till later on. Yeah. But when it does, it's like, I felt like at no point did I go, that's horseshit. I felt like he absolutely set up the twists where you were just like, oh my god, that's true, and I didn't see it coming. But you buy it, like, you know, it's like I said on the last video, you know, there's a particular way to set up a plot twist.
Yeah.
And it should be done in such a way that when it happens, you go, oh my god, I can't believe I didn't see that. And that happens a couple of times in the game.
It does, yeah.
The key card one is another one as well. Because you're the hero and everything you do is to stop the villains. And then you have this key card, and it's like, oh, you got Otacon's telling you, oh, you got to go here, and then you got to go there. And like, okay, whatever. It's a little challenge, a little puzzle. You do it. It activates Metal Gear X. And you're like, what the fuck? I didn't want to do that.
yeah. And that's because they've set you up in such a way. So they've told you it's already active because of all the lies that they've told you. And therefore, Otacon also believes that. So it's not like Otacon's working against you. He is giving you genuine advice on how to deactivate it. But because it wasn't activated at all, you activate it. Yeah. Wow.
And then there's a reason as well to why it's not activated. There's like, they didn't have the codes or something.
They
thought there was true cards.
There's also the Ocelot twist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So Ocelot, Revolver Ocelot, who's one of the main characters, was torturing Kenneth Baker, the Arms Tech president, who was one of the main developers behind this Metal Gear X project. And he's torturing him to get the code off him, right? Yeah. And he accidentally kills him. But then, so as a result, he tortured them. Yeah,
not Kenneth Baker.
No, sorry, DARPA chief. Sorry, you're right. DARPA chief. He kills the DARPA chief through torture accidentally. He tortures him too much. And as a result, they set up this whole plan of Deco Octopus being the DARPA chief and all this kind of stuff. But as a result, you find out later on that he killed him on purpose because he's working for the White House. And to make sure that the DARPA chief wouldn't talk to anyone, he just silenced him. But then they came up with this other plan. And because he's like a undercover agent, he has to go along with it.
Yeah.
And he is so embedded. Ocelot is such a complicated character. Like, he will do anything to keep his cover.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And that carries on.
Yeah, like his role throughout the entire series.
Easy.
Yeah. He essentially is the true hero of the series, which is weird.
But also the kind of overarching villain in a way.
But he's only a villain because he has to maintain that.
I know, it's like he's crazy.
Yeah, he's so good.
But the real villains of the series, I suppose, are ideas more than
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like they're like defeating ideas and defeating like notions rather than actual people. It's fucking crazy. This game is crazy, man. The F-bombs galore coming out now because Les Enfants Terribles.
Which is another great twist.
Which is another great fucking twist. The game is fucking jam-packed, man. Oh, Metal Gear Twist is what it should be called.
Yeah.
But do you guys do you have a favorite one? If you had to kind of pick one that kind of stands out the most to you?
It'd probably have to be the Deco Octopus one, because that one really is there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then, like, you see it there. Because, like, when you get Naomi Hunter's twist and Jim Houseman's one, that kind of isn't. That is there, but it's kind of not as much in your face.
You couldn't have possibly guessed that they did that. They're behind it, like really. Well, until it tells you. I suppose. That's
or that Revolver Ocelot is a secret, is a spy working for. Yeah, it's a great twist, but you wouldn't have been able to in any way see that. But the Decoy Octopus one definitely is one.
Yeah. How about you, Adam?
I think probably the Grey Fox one, just because of the timing of it and the moment it's being said, and it's the speech as well that sets Snake on his path, you know?
Yeah, I love that quote, and it's a shame that it doesn't come up later on in the series. It's also a shame that like Grey Fox as a character hasn't been revisited when they started doing all this. Like to me, it's crazy that the Phantom Pain, for example, did not include Grey Fox as a character.
Yeah.
When Big Boss is building his like allies, like. So there's another character who plays a huge role in the Phantom Pain and plays a significant role in this game as well. In Metal Gear.
There's another twist.
I was just about to mention it, but it's just crazy to me that Grey Fox isn't like utilized as much later in the series because he's so iconic in that first game.
But what I love about that twist is like just the reveal to you as a player, just like realizing so everything Naomi is doing is for nothing. Like it's all built on a fucking lie. Like Solid Snake could be totally fine if this fucker didn't like lie to her. But the fact that Grey Fox is way too weak of a person to even admit to her, and that every time he looks at her,
he's like, "Tell Snake, will you tell her for me? Because I can't do it. I can't bring myself to."
And every time he looks at her, he's just reminded of like when he slaughtered her parents.
It's so there's so much in it. I was just about to say like my favorite twist in the game, like this, it's not like the biggest one, like there's loads of them, but I think it's one of the ones that caught me the most off guard because it is one of those ones that is genuinely in front of your face, and that's that Liquid Snake is Master Miller the whole way through. It's the same voice actor. He looks the fucking same, but also it's it's so funny. Like on the codec, it's like Colonel goes, "You've been talking to me, dear brother," and he pulls his hair down and takes the shades off on the codec, and then Snake goes, "Liquid." That's what I was talking about earlier on. Like they can't see each other, but at the same time as him doing that, I, the player, like I didn't go, "That's ridiculous." I just went, "Holy shit, it is." And it has been all along. And then when you go back and listen to it, and you're going, "How did I not know that is Liquid? Like it's absolutely Liquid." Like at the very start, you go, "Hello, Snake, it's me, Master Miller," and you're like, "No, it's fucking not. It's fucking Liquid." It's just so good that like he has also been manipulating you the whole way through the game, and there's a visual aid there. Like you can see it, like it is Liquid. But yes, the first time I played it, I had no idea. I just took it for granted. Yeah, that's Master Miller. Yeah, and that's
But I think another thing that's what's so great about the booklet is that they have Liquid Snake and they have a drawing of Liquid Snake, but they have a drawing of Master Miller as like a separate character. And
so
you
look at the booklet, it does set you up. The booklet sets that twist up by having multiple characters there that you're just like, "Oh yeah, they're cool. These are all these characters," and that's good. In the same way as it sets up the Decoy Octopus thing, because you're always wondering when will I meet him. And so the booklet plays two roles. It's got it's a really cool information booklet and it's got cool artwork, but it actually helps set up twists in the game.
Yeah.
Fuck me, man. This game is unreal. This game is unbelievable.
Well, again, it's not like the limitations of the hardware, allows for one of the major twists in the game to actually take place, and that is the fact that the bad guy is your twin. And you see him throughout the entire game, obviously, but because it's PS1 graphics,
you can't tell.
You can't tell. Everyone looks the same in that game. So, that won't work in a film because you can tell by looking at them that they're twins, and that's why it doesn't really work in the remake, the Twin Snakes. Well, I suppose it's called the Twin Snakes, so it kind of has to. Give it away anyway.
I think, in fairness, the Twin Snakes is made in such a way that like it can be the first one you experience, but at the same time, it's sort of made for the fans, and it's sort of you've already played the original, right? So here's just an amped up version of it.
But they still have the whole like they don't really show Liquid's face that much during the Twin Snakes.
Well,
So
only during they do at the very beginning. They show you. They show you his face. They show you Snake's face, and then it goes the twin snakes.
Yeah,
Oh,
like they're deliberately they're not hiding it, but the idea is that you know more than Solid Snake does. Solid Snake is not aware.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is funny because that's another one where it's like, yeah, you can't see because of the polygon, so you don't know that they're brothers. But at the same time, it's like as soon as you find out that they're twins, you go, well, of course they're twins. Their surname is Snake. Like, I know that's a code name, but like you just took it for granted. You're like, yeah, Liquid Snake, because he's like the evil snake. And at no point did you like think early on it's like, oh, they must be related. You just went, oh, they're just like, it's just like this biblical kind of versus thing. And then you find out they're brothers, and you go, of course they are. Like, it all makes sense. Oh, it's such a good game. It's funny though, like the thing that the terrorists are demanding in the game are the remains of Big Boss, and that makes no sense at all until the final game of the story. Like this one,
the final game.
The final game, really. Let's not beat around the bush here. So we're coming towards the end of this discussion. I think you could tell by our enthusiasm, we could probably talk about this game forever.
Yeah, but I could literally talk about every scene. Like, let's start with when we get out of the water.
But I was going to ask, like, because we've talked about, and we do it with a lot of other games, like we've talked about like favorite boss fights, and there's two more, and like what you think about the music, all that stuff. There's two more things I'd like to ask everyone, and that's first, your favorite character in the game, and then second. So think about that first, and then second, this is probably going to be harder. Your favorite part of the game.
Jesus Christ!
Because, like, look, we're here. Let's discuss it. Why not? So, as anyone,
we're discussing it. Every part was amazing and every character was great. I don't understand why you need the question.
Eric hates when we ask him for favorites. He's like, he does not like to say like something is his favorite because he's like, well, does that mean I can't change my mind?
Yeah, of course it does. It's like,
it's just at the time,
stone or something.
No, it's just at the time of this recording, this is how we feel about this game. In 10 years' time, wait till we make the episode where we go, man, I hate that game. No, that'll never happen. So is there a particular character that you know for a fact it's like, no, that's my favorite character in that game?
I remember as a child.
I think as well.
Revolver Ocelot.
Yeah, Ocelot.
Yeah.
And is it as a result of that game, or is it because of the overarching?
I think the moment you meet him and see him, you're like, this guy means business. This guy is
spinning the revolver,
like,
and
it's a really great way to introduce a character. And it's kind of sad that like it's a different voice actor than the other ones in the series.
Yeah,
I really really like the first voice actor. I think he does a really good job with him.
Yeah, well, I think he sets him up in a way that so Patrick Zimmerman does his voice for like the rest of the series really, but apart from the younger one. But he does a good follow on from that first one. So that first one did set this is the character, like this is kind of how he speaks.
Yeah, I think like without knowing his role in the future games, I think they knew Revolver Ocelot was something special because they made him such an important part.
Yeah,
and
that
it's first introduction to him like really sticks with you.
Yeah, it's interesting to me how old he is.
Mm.
It's a weird thing because it's like you're fighting against all these bosses, and he's essentially an old man. Like, but he's also
kicks your ass.
Yeah, he's also this incredible gunslinger and this incredible spy who's been through it all, which you don't know, and it comes over time. But it's an unusual choice. Like if I was going to design a double agent character, I would never use an old man, and that probably works to the character's advantage too, because that's all like a facade. That's all.
He's not actually old.
No, there's a lot more to him than what the eye sees. Like there's a lot more there underneath. Eric, favorite character in the game? As a
child, I always loved Decoy Octopus on the basis of he was never in the game, and I wanted him to be in the game because I loved his design. I loved
Wasn't there a myth that you could fight him if you fell down?
Yeah.
Do you remember those floors that fall? And I remember I was like, I really want to do that fight, that secret fight. It's really just designed to have you die over and over again.
That's one of those like
So
urban
funny.
legends that appear, like
Yeah,
in the playground and school that ends up, surfacing.
But like I just love that he had like his cheekbones removed or altered or something. He had like his nose removed. He had like his ears. He had like loads of cosmetic changes to his entire self, so he could take on any form, which was
it's
so
really
cool.
freaky and messed up.
Yeah, so I would have loved for them to actually develop that character more because they didn't really.
Yeah.
But
I would imagine seeing him in future games. Like that would have been so cool.
It
would have been awesome.
Explore him in like the Phantom Pain would have been a way cooler game if it was the setup of Foxhound.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been a way better game if
it was good.
If it was really good. But no, I think all that stuff's cool, and I think as well, it's part of the character. I think though is that you don't learn anything about Decoy Octopus because he constantly changes his identity. His past is probably like a total mystery even to the people who work with him closest. Like no one
actually
knows him.
Think about the fact they work for Foxhound, right? And you got Naomi Hunter, who's like the psychologist. And you got Mei Ling, who saves. And can you imagine, like, the doctor? Oh, Decoy Octopus. Oh, you got a cut. I'll fix it up. And he's got like a disfigured face. Or like, doing psychotherapy with Psycho Mantis, who's fucking reading your mind. Like, how the fuck can you deal with these people?
I mean, it's a good point. Yeah,
fuck that shit, like.
The human resources department for Foxhound must have been fucking like really stressed out of their minds,
Think about the protein you would have to order in for Vulcan Raven. Like that would have broke their economy.
I think my favorite character in the first game is Grey Fox. I think.
Yeah. Overall Grey Fox because it's an iconic design.
Yeah, I love his design. Every time he comes in, he does something amazing. I even loved his voice, but then also he had this incredible backstory. So it wasn't all just cool style. There was a lot of substance there too. He's just awesome. Like, and so immediately iconic in how he looks and how he's designed. And I remember like even when it came to the second one, as soon as I saw a ninja, I was like, oh my God, that's so fucking cool. Who's the new ninja? And it became a topic. And I wonder who's going to be the ninja in the next one when it became a thing, a role that passes on. But I'll always remember Grey Fox was always the coolest one. And always. And so, if those are our favorite.
He was a ninja in the second one, though, wasn't he? Like in Metal Gear 2?
I don't think so.
Snake?
No, I think there's.
There is a ninja, though.
There is a ninja as a boss fight. Yeah.
It's
a ninja. I think he might be called Shadow or something. I don't know. But, I mean, Grey Fox is obviously in it as a boss fight, but he's definitely an agent in it. He's not.
Yeah.
And so I think he's the one in Metal Gear that you fight. I'm not too familiar with those first two. Sorry, guys.
I do love, though, when they talk about when they fight, they fought on a minefield. Because obviously we never played the first two games, but just think about that concept of how hard that boss fight is, fighting on a minefield, and how cool that is in like a cinematic.
Well, there's a wonderful, wonderful rumor out there that Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 are going to get remakes. And they're going to be not only given, obviously, modern graphics, but modern gameplay. And I'm sure they'd be fleshed out to be full games. And if they try and follow the kind of style of the first of Metal Gear Solid, obviously it'd be a little bit more retro in terms of like the technology wouldn't be as good as it is in the first one. But if they try and follow that style, I am like all for it. I can't, like, if that happens, I can't wait. I would love that. So please follow if you're out there listening. Please follow Metal Gear Solid's formula and not the Phantom Pains. Please.
I put money on it's going to be the Phantom Pain style.
Yeah, I would as well. I think so because they're going to be like, if in Zanzibar land, it's going to be an open war zone. So yeah, I would so rather it was just infiltrating a facility again with all that kind of Metroidvania style gameplay. I'd love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we bring all this to an end, your favorite part of the game. And go. But yeah, there's loads of really good stuff. So like, this is not, doesn't mean you don't like the other stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The introduction of Merle, which then leads in that fight where you have all those like heavy duty security guards coming in, and you're like shooting them, and then Merle like runs away, and she gets like possessed by Psycho Mantis in like a split instant, and shoots at you. Like just that setup as well. So that like and introducing Merle, which was like one of the first female characters I grew up with, who didn't have to scream "James, save me" every 5 seconds, was fantastic.
Yeah,
that bit was really good.
Actually. Meryl is awesome, but yeah, that bit is great and instantly memorable as well. And the whole thing, you haven't even taken off the safety, rookie. I'm not a rookie. You know, that whole exchange is so good. Adam, have you got a favorite part in your favorite game?
No.
That actually, if I say it like that, it makes it harder because does that mean that's your favorite thing ever put to games?
Yeah, I don't. No.
My favorite bit is probably the Jeep chase at the end, going through the highway and shooting all these guys, and it's like, you know, there's a time limit. The place is about to blow. You're on your way. It just feels like a big cinematic like outro. It just feels like a big final fight kind of thing. And
almost feels like a Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it kind of does actually. But and then Liquid is
Chris
still
just
alive.
loves doing drive-bys.
I do. I love them. No, it's just like it's just a moment where the gameplay is a bit different, and it's the finale of the game, and the music is amped up, and Liquid is still alive, and he's chasing you, and you're having this final showdown with your evil brother as the place is about to be bombed by the government who forsake you, and it's so fucking good. So I think that's my favorite part of the game. Yeah, for sure.
I definitely cannot pick it. Like, it's the only game I can think of where, like, when I decide to start it again, which I do often, it doesn't feel like
in my restless nights. In my sleepless nights. So it's like too often.
Like unlike like we've mentioned in the past about like stuff like Oblivion and even I feel like that with Final Fantasy VII as well. Where it just almost feels like it takes kind of a while to get into it.
Right, yeah.
Whereas with Metal Gear Solid, like you're straight in. Like there's not really much to it. All the briefing is actually done in a separate video in the main menu, which is optional. You don't even have to fucking watch it.
And actually, even if you don't watch it, you will have a grasp of like what's going on. That just gives you extra. If you want extra information, it's good. But you don't have
the opening is like, all right, you're like this really cool infiltration, and then you're getting all the names of the bosses, from Colonel, and then you get out and then straight into gameplay.
I think a lot of modern games need to kind of start working on doing that because.
Sorry, the way I like picked that up was a lot of modern games need to do exactly what that game just did. Like, getting into like a facility, straight into gameplay, wait for an elevator.
It doesn't matter if you're actually stranded on a desert planet. You got to make sure that you swim to that planet. You know.
What are you trying to say though?
No, but that you get because there's too many games that take like forever to get into it, and they're just the most fun games to play and replay are the ones that just get straight into it.
Yeah, world building is always a tough thing to grasp when you know, like if you're setting up something like Oblivion, for example. Like I know we shit on that for it taking ages to get into it, but they have that struggle of, well, you have to make your character, and then it's obviously setting up why you're there kind of a thing, and then here's the controls, here's how you do it, and then when you're finally out of that tutorials, you know, there's the wider world. And same with Final Fantasy VII, like, I mean, world building and that, like, there's a lot to do. Metal Gear Solid, I think, is, you know, it serves its story. The whole point is you're an agent who knows fuck all. You know, it's like, here's your information, do what you can with it, basically. Like, I mean, that's why we hired you. You know, you can work with this little piece of information. So it's not going to work for every game because the gameplay serves the story.
But as well, it's a fictional version of our world. So you kind of like, it's already relatable. You don't have to set up like there's this is the religion of this world, or this is the, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to set up all that kind of stuff. This is the formation of this world or how it looks. It's supposed to be like the game is set in Alaska. It's supposed to be set within our world. It's just a fictional version of our world.
Yeah, and you can see it in later Metal Gear games like Metal Gear Solid 3, for example, which takes a lot longer to get into it because it is trying to do some world building because it's set in a different time. Yeah. So it needs to try to get you, the player, into that mindset. So that's not as straight into it as the first one.
And we are so going to talk about the rest of this series in follow-up episodes. We need to do
like,
an episode per Metal Gear Solid game. No, like this is easily one of the best game franchises out there.
I would say it's the best.
As an entire franchise, I probably would as well. Even though my favorite game isn't within it, as an actual entire series, I would say Metal Gear Solid is probably the best. It's probably my favorite. And definitely for its PS1, PS2, and PS3 era.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, I feel like it has. It's weird. It has
never continued on.
No, it's weird to say it has kind of overstayed its welcome.
Yeah.
In that it's an amazing game, I love them, but I felt it had a perfect finale.
Yeah. Some
don't
really need to know when to stop.
Yeah. Well, that's not all down to one person. But anyway, that concludes our thoughts on Metal Gear Solid. If you haven't played it, please do. And why were you still listening if you haven't? We've just ruined the whole fucking thing. But I'm sure you probably have played it, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Please let us know. And even let us know your favorite boss fights from the game, your favorite characters, all that kind of stuff that we discussed. Next episode, we will be discussing Eric's favorite game. Me and Adam don't know what it is. We're not even sure if Eric knows what it is. I don't know if you've noticed.
No,
he asked me he doesn't like it. So it could be a very interesting episode where we're just interrogating him. But until then, thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.